I love the sound of rain on the roof. Not a downpour, but that steady, hypnotic tapping. It's my white noise. I live on the top floor of an old 4-story building, and when it rains, it feels like the whole world has shrunk to the size of my warm room. On weather like this, I can't work. I just lie on the couch and listen. That night, the rain started suddenly, as it often does in the fall. I just happened to have insomnia after a tough day at work. Instead of tossing and turning in bed, I decided to give in to the ritual. Couch, blanket, and that lulling tapping on the tin roof. And so, listening to that chaotic rhythm, I began to hear order in it. At first, I didn't believe my ears. It seemed there were pauses between the drops. Not random ones, but rhythmic ones. 1, 2, 3. Pause. 1, 2. Pause. As if someone was bouncing a ball on the roof right above my head. The neighbor's cat, I thought immediately. But the roof is sloped, covered in slippery galvanized iron. No cat would go for a walk up there in a downpour. The tapping continued. Now distinct. Tap. Tap, tap. Tap. Clear. Intentional. I froze. The insomnia and the silence of the apartment made this sound deafeningly loud. And that's when I made my first mistake. I knocked on the ceiling with my fist. The tapping on the roof stopped for a second. And then it repeated my rhythm exactly. Beat for beat. The chilling terror gave way to irrational curiosity. A bird. A branch. I thought feverishly. To dispel my doubts, I made the second mistake. I went out to the stairwell, broke the simple lock to the attic, and climbed up the rickety ladder. The attic was dark, dusty, and smelled of dampness. And through the noise of the rain, I heard it right above my head, that same tap-tap-tap, now hollow and heavy, right behind the thin layer of roofing. And another sound. A shuffling, as if someone in wet clothes was slowly, crouching, moving across the tin. I didn't scream. I couldn't. I just stood there, staring into the darkness at the ceiling, listening as it moved from one end of the roof to the other, towards the dormer window. It stopped right opposite it. The glass was dirty, smeared with rain. And through that grime on the glass, from the outside, a blurry outline slowly emerged, as if someone had pressed their forehead against the glass to peek inside. That very second, I bolted downstairs, slammed the hatch shut, and locked it with a key that had never been there. I listened, standing on the stairs. It was quiet above. Just the rain. I thought that was the end of it. But it was only the prelude. An hour later, the tapping returned. But not on the roof. On the balcony. And my balcony, facing the inner courtyard well, was 2 floors below the attic. There's a glass door leading to it. And as I sat with my back pressed against the wall in the far room, I heard a new sound. Not a tap. A scrape. Metal on glass. Slowly, methodically, as if something sharp was being dragged across the door, trying to find a crack. I didn't look. I was afraid to see the same wet smudge that had pressed against the attic window, now just 2 meters from my bed. This went on until dawn. With the first light, the sound stopped. When I gathered the courage to go out onto the balcony, on the fogged-up glass from the inside, I found only my own smudges. But on the outside, at the very top where I couldn't reach, the glass was covered in tangled, overlapping scratches. Not deep, like from a nail, but fine, frequent, as if someone had been dragging a piece of wire across it at wild speed, or dry, stiff fingers. I called the police. They inspected the roof, the attic, the balcony. Their version: vandals or a sick bird. The wind. You got too nervous. They didn't find a single trace on the roof. No broken tiles, no dents in the tin from sticks. Nothing. Only my footprints in the dusty attic and those impossible scratches on the outside of the balcony glass the police left. Their indifference was scarier than the night itself. Stress, hallucinations, the senior officer said, looking at my trembling hands. They didn't even photograph the scratches. The door closed, and I was left alone with a silence that now seemed ominous. I didn't accept it. I got angry. This was my house. Instead of fear came rage. I went to the hardware store and bought the most powerful tactical flashlight, a pepper spray can, and, for luck, an old baseball bat. I was ready not to listen, but to evict. The next rain started exactly at midnight. And as if by contract, 5 minutes later, the tapping began. Tap, tap, tap. This time, not on the roof. In the ventilation shaft in the bathroom. It had descended inside the house. I didn't wait. With the flashlight and bat in hand, I burst into the bathroom, tore off the vent grate, and directed a blinding beam into the hole. There, in the green mold and cobwebs, on the bend of the air duct, something had frozen. Not a person. Not an animal. Too long to be a rat, too bony and wet. It reflected the light like wet skin. And it had no face, only a hollow from which a dark, empty expanse stared back at me. It didn't move, just stared. And that's when I made the mistake. I shoved the bat into the shaft to drive it out. The instantaneous reaction was deafening. The air duct erupted with a crash, as if a steel ball had raced through it. The creature broke free and rushed deeper into the system, into the very heart of the house. I heard metal bending and tearing behind the walls in the kitchen, the bedroom, the living room. It thrashed through the hidden pipes like a shark caught in a trap. And then the tapping changed to a grating. It came from the wall behind my headboard. I walked over and placed my palm on the wallpaper. It was warm and damp. I shoved the bed aside and hit the drywall with the bat. On the first hit, plaster rained down. On the second, a hole appeared. And from that hole, from the cavity in the wall, gushed a stream of icy, stinking water, full of rust and slime. And behind the water, a hand appeared. Long, grey-white, with fingers almost fused into a flipper. It grabbed the broken edge of the wall, trying to widen the passage. I didn't think. I struck. The bat came down on the knuckles. A sound like breaking chopsticks rang out. The hand jerked and disappeared into the darkness, leaving a black, oily smear on the drywall. A dead silence settled in the house. Only raindrops outside and the sloshing of water on the floor. I stood there, breathing heavily, the blooded bat in my hands, staring at the hole in my bedroom wall. Did I win? Did I hurt it? I don't know. But I know this. Since then, the rain's come, but the tapping is gone. Silence. Only sometimes, when the downpour is especially heavy, a muffled, gurgling sound comes from that very hole in the wall, the one I patched with cement. And it seems that to the touch, that patch of wall pulses. Maybe it left. Or maybe I just drove it deeper. And now we live here together. But the rules have changed. Now it's my pulse that's tapping. And it's listening.